How's it going, YouTube? It's LBMTG, and welcome to another modern RCQ video. You guys showed a lot of love to the last one, so I'm going to put just as much effort into this one, editing and spending hours and hours and hours making it as good as possible. Now, in our last RCQ, we took kind of what I would call a dead deck. I kind of would even go as far as to call it like a meme deck. It was a creature combo deck that no one's really playing anymore. And I put up some very good results. If you want to watch that one after this one, definitely check it out in the description. Well, in today's video, I'm going to do the complete opposite. Instead of playing a deck that no one's playing, I'm going to take the top deck. Now, in our last RCQ, no one playing this deck made the top 8, so it's kind of a risk because my local meta is definitely hunting after this deck. But we're going to be able to see a very interesting stark comparison between taking a great deck versus taking a good deck to a modern RCQ. So what am I taking to this one? Well, before we get into the deck, I do want to quickly say that you guys are about to witness some of the most exciting Magic matches you've ever seen. So please stick around. I promise you, you'll enjoy it. But this is Modern Affinity. Is it Affinity? Pinnacle Affinity? It has a couple different names. Metalcraft people call it, but this is Modern Affinity. And the deck is full of a bunch of bad cards, okay? Don't get me wrong, but it's very powerful because it only needs one engine to really get going. So the three main engines are Pinnacle Emissary, which you can cast it for its 3 mana cost, or you can pay 1 and warp it to just make it enter for this turn and then be castable later. What this says is whenever you cast an artifact spell, it comes with a 1/1 flyer. The flyer can only block flyers, but as you can imagine, if you can play this for 1 mana and then dump a bunch of 0-drop artifacts, you can spit out like 5 1/1s on turn 1, and that's just kind of hard for some decks to deal with, honestly. You can just clock people 4 turns in a row and win the game that way. On top of that, we have another kind of engine, which is Weapons Manufacturing. This is a 2 mana enchantment, so it's a little slower, but it says whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, you could create this little artifact token that says whenever it leaves the battlefield, it shocks something. So it deals 2 damage to something. So if you play this, then play a bunch of 0 mana artifacts, you can probably guess the theme here. You're going to make a bunch of little tokens that when they leave the battlefield, you can do 2 damage to something. And we have a few different ways to get rid of those tokens manually. Or if your opponent packs some artifact board hate in game 2 and 3, then you can just cause them to blow themselves up, which, hey, that works. And then finally, the other like engine of the deck is Kappa Cannoneer. This is a 6 mana creature, and it's a 4/4, so that's not that desirable, math-wise. But it says that you can tap an artifact to pay for one of its generic mana costs. So if you pay a blue mana and tap 5 artifacts, this is a 1 mana 4/4. It doesn't stop there. It says it has Ward 4, so it's very difficult for your opponent to get rid of this. They have to cast like a Solitude for free and then also have 4 mana open, to pay the ward cost. On top of that, it says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on this creature and it becomes unblockable. So this gets very big very quickly. It comes out very quickly and it's hard for your opponent to deal with. If you play this turn 1, which you can in this deck, then they have to wait until like turn 4 or 5 to get rid of it at the fastest. So this thing gets huge. Also worth noting is this also sees artifact tokens enter. So and it also sees itself enter. So when it enters, it basically comes in as a 5/5, and then plus if it triggers any of these cards, like Weapons Manufacturing, it'll come in as like a 6/6, for example. So basically, you play these 3 engines. These rely on other spells, other free, cheap artifacts to really work. And then you play a bunch of cheap artifacts. So we play a bunch of 1-ofs because we're playing Urza's Saga. And so we have Shadow Spear. If we put Shadow Spear on a Kappa Cannoneer, it makes it really big and lifelinky and tramply. Springleaf Drum, just in case we need that extra mana, or we get like Blood Moon or something. Skateboard, because this can give our Kappas haste. It can give constructs haste, but it can also tap down their only blocker. Very, very good. And then Pithing Needle. We can Urza's Saga it out. If they don't fetch in response, we get a free stifle on their fetches. It's a very powerful effect. On top of that, like I said, we play a bunch of 0 drops because on turn 1, we want to either spit out a bunch of tokens. On turn 2, we want to make a bunch of non-token artifacts that'll shock our opponent, or we want to be able to power out a Kappa Cannoneer on turn 1 or 2. So the 0 mana artifacts that we play are obviously Mox Opal. This is what allows us to turn 1 Kappa Cannoneer, but it just like powers us out. This card's busted. So yeah. Engineered Explosives, it's fine to play this on 0 just for another artifact, but worth noting is if you play this on 0 just to like get an early Pinnacle Emissary trigger or to power out an early Kappa Cannoneer, later you can sack these on 0 to blow up all of the 0 drops on the field. That includes the tokens that weapons manufacturing creates, so you can shock your opponent 10 times if you have 10 tokens when you pop your EE. We also play 3 Claws of Gix. You can pay a mana, sacrifice a permanent, and gain a life. So this becomes pay a mana, sacrifice one of the weapons manufacturing tokens, gain a life, and shock your opponent or shock their creature. So you can start really chipping away at their board with the Claw of Gix. It's a great card, and it's fetchable with Urza Saga. Then over here, the 0 drops that aren't that important, like they don't really do that much for the game plan, but they're just there because they're good 0 drops. Mishra's Bauble helps us draw more cards, which is always good. Play it early for your Kappa Cannoneer, pop it later, so you can hopefully hit more things for Pinnacle and weapons manufacturing. Tormod's Crypt, we can hit graveyards. This can slow down those reanimating decks or just buy you a turn versus prowess or something to shut off DRCs. It's just good to have. 3 welding jars because this protects our Kappa Cannoneers and all of our other artifacts. And then 2 Memnites. Now, I opted for 2 Memnites instead of the 4th Tormod's Crypt and Welding Jar. It's just a personal preference. I would rather have another non-creature artifact in the deck other than Pinnacle and Kappa, just in case I get like Edicted or something, because there were some people playing the mono black deck. So I wanted those. We also play a little bit of interaction, kind of, in our lands with Sink into Stupor if we want to bounce something in a panic scenario. Hopefully that doesn't come up. And then finally, the last 2 cards. So basically, the only hands you keep will either allow you to play a weapons on turn 2 and then dump a bunch of 0 mana artifacts, ideally with one of these included, or a Pinnacle on turn 1 trying to burst out a bunch of tokens, or you want to get a turn 2 Kappa Cannoneer. You basically need 1 or more, but not more than like 2 of these engine cards in your opening hand to make it viable. The only other option that you can probably keep if you don't want to mull down to 5, if you just aren't seeing these cards or good hands, is Emry Lurker of the Loch. This, when it enters, it'll cost 1 mana if you have 2 artifacts out. When it enters, you mill 4, and then for the rest of the game, until this is killed, you can tap it every turn to recast an artifact. This works great with Mishra's Bauble to draw cards, like an extra card each turn. Tormod's Crypt to just snipe your opponent's graveyard every turn. It's just a very, very good card. You can also get more mana out of it by recycling the same 2 Mox Opals because they'll make themselves sack each other. And then also I just have 2 Thoughtcast. You don't keep a hand if the only good card in there is Thoughtcast. This is just to turn into 2 artifacts later in the game. This is the sideboard. We have Blood Moon kind of hate for big Eldrazi-ish decks. Small creature hate and Whip Flare, that's amazing for a board wipe. Hits all non-artifact creatures. Galvanic Blast can deal 4 to things like Thought-Knot Seer versus like big Eldrazi or something. So a bunch of counter spells, just bring them in against what they're good at. Consign is the best one. It's just the best card in the format. Relic of Progenitus for more graveyard hate. And guys, that's the deck. Like I said, you're about to witness some of the most exciting Magic in the entire YouTube sphere. So stick around, enjoy the video, hit the like button. If you like this content, let's get into the action. All right, kicking things off with round number 1. Now, I was able to record all the matches this week, except for one that will come up. But the most important turn in the entire tournament just happened. It's turn 1. I led with a Surveil land, setting up a turn 2 weapons, and that put my opponent on, I'm either on Is It Prowess or Is It Affinity? And since he is on Eldrazi aggro, he thinks that since I play cheap decks, I am on the cheaper of the 2. Is It Prowess? So he goes for a Chalice on turn 1. If he would have played that Chalice on turn 0, I think that I instantly lose. However, luckily, that Surveil land gave a coin flip to him, and we end up on the other end of that coin flip with a Chalice on 1 instead of Chalice on 0. He then takes our Mox Opal with Thought-Knot Seer, but that's okay. I have 2 weapons manufacturings out, and I can play my 0 drops, and boy, do I. We dump quite a few, and we get all the way up to 6 munitions tokens. Now, these don't look too impressive in the face of big Eldrazi. However, keep in mind that Claws of Gix, I can pay a mana, gain a life, and just start pinging down his creatures. Luckily, we top deck this Thoughtcast, and that just will basically turn into more permanents, of which I hit a land, so that way we don't lose out on being able to kill that Thought Not Seared this turn. Um, as he does remove my blocker and put down a very scary Eldrazi, but luckily I left 2 mana open so that I can sacrifice 2 munitions and kill that Eldrazi. So that Eldrazi, I think, is called Line Breaker. It says that at the beginning of combat, you can give another Eldrazi XO and haste, where X is the amount of Eldrazi that you control. So obviously that is terrifying in an Eldrazi aggro deck, just being able to give each one haste. And luckily we ping it down before combat, and yeah, we are sitting pretty. We use all those munitions tokens to ping down his entire board, including that Thought Not Seer, that 4/4 Thought Not Seer, to draw a card when it dies. And I'm feeling pretty good. We are kind of lacking in the top deck territory. I believe when he Thought Not Seared me, we saw that I had a Sink and a Stupor in hand. So, I mean, I can kind of just like hold up interaction and wait for something threatening. That Kozilek's command, it's scary. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely a great card. I'm just not too afraid of it. But notice that I have an Urza's Saga on the field. Okay, this is going to be a controversial card this match, and you guys will see why. Just pay attention to it. It's going to get kind of sus. But he goes for a Flesh Raker, and Flesh Raker is very scary. It can start pinging me down, but with its trigger on the stack, I can just easily kill it with the munitions. That way, we don't see any triggers from it, and be just fine. But luckily, he's just playing that Null Drifter to draw cards, and it draws him into a Chalice. Now we have a Chalice on 0. He's been able to exile my Urza's Saga. Luckily, hey, we top deck another one. This game's easy, right? But no, this is scary. I mean, the Eldrazi deck plays a lot of ways main board to remove my artifacts and enchantments, and Urza's Saga is an enchantment, so it does kind of ruin it. And you see there, what is this one called? This is Sower Mycosynth or something like that. Sower Mycospawn. That one removes the next Urza's Saga. So we're down to Urza's Saga. We're down to 13, but we still have 5 leftover munitions. As he drops a Thought Not Seer. Oh man, so he takes one of my 2 Sink into Stupors. I was able to draw the whole playset of the Sink into Stupors, and I can use that Thought Not Seer's death to basically turn my Sink into Stupor into another card. So, hey, we take that, and we do draw a untraditional 1-drop, so it's one that gets around Chalice because it's Imri. It actually costs 3 mana, but it costs 1 less for each artifact that I control. And luckily, we hit a Kappa Cannoneer and I believe another Pinnacle Emissary off the top into the graveyard. So now, if he were to let me untap with that Emery, we could start getting we can get froggy, but he does not. He clears the board, but hey, it is way too late. We have killed all of his stuff, and we are going into game 2. That was a pretty untraditional first one, but like I said, we definitely lose that game had he turned 1 Chosen Chalice on 0. Here, speaking of Chalice on 0, ooh, he almost did it. He almost Vexing Bobbled and then tried to Chalice on 0, which would have been countered by the Vexing Bobble. Hey, I would have let it go through, but I let him take it back. I told him, hey, even though you missequenced those, I think keeping that Chalice for later, keeping it for turn 1 is probably better. And I definitely do stand by that. But my hand is actually okay. Now, notice Vexing Bobble just says that it counters it if you cast it. It doesn't say that you can't cast 0-drops. But, following up a Vexing Bobble on turn 1 with a turn 2 creature that can kill, or turn 3, I guess, can kill my 1 weapons manufacturing, that's pretty scary. That is pretty scary. However, I do draw an EE. I put it on 1, pop that Vexing Bobble, and before that Chalice on 0 can come down, I'm just dumping the hand, hoping that I don't draw like a weapons or a Pinnacle Emissary off the top, but instead hoping that I land into a Kappa Cannoneer, because I knew the Chalice on 0 was there. And unfortunately, we do hit the Pinnacle, but once again, Pinnacle is another card that says when you cast another artifact. It doesn't say that the artifact has to enter or resolve. And there you see he's able to draw into another Vexing Bauble and a Thought Knot Seer. So Hellbent, we're peeling off the top, and we do have an Urza Saga that can make a big creature, but his board's starting to build up, and it's building up pretty quickly. However, so is mine. That the only downside is it's these drones, and these drones can't block his big Eldrazi. And if he can just clear my construct tokens, eventually I'm going to get overrun by like big dum dum 4/4s. I don't even know what that card's called. The Eldrazi that keeps exiling all my crap, but it hits an artifact or an enchantment. And I don't know, guys. This one's not looking too hot. We do end up getting an EE, which I can put on 2 and wipe away those 2 little guys, but we still have a bunch of 4/4s that are getting ready to come across. Now there's a Null Drifter. This one is not looking good. I can't even tell you what sequence of cards I would have to draw here. Maybe like Thoughtcast into like multiple Kappa Cannoneers and him dead drawing. So here we move on to game 3 of round 1, guys. This round 1, I'm telling you, this is about to kick off. So I keep a hand that has a bunch of 0 drops. I know he's on Chalice, so I'm going to go ahead and dump them all turn 1. We do keep an Emery hand, though. I don't want to mull too low. And if my hand can play, I definitely want to keep it in this matchup. And I don't know if you saw it, but we actually have a Consign in hand. So we're able to do all of this and keep up a mana thanks to Mox Opal. Also, I don't think we milled anything of note with the Emery. Just an EE and a Welding Jar and 2 lands. So nothing too good, but we're able to use that the Consign to counter his Vexing Bauble. I don't know. Should I have done that or should I have held it? Regardless, we countered it, and this is the game we're playing now. So I have Emery, who can just keep recycling all these 0 drops each turn, turning them into munitions. And eventually, like, on board, I'm presenting a pretty lethal game plan where I can just do this every turn until he threatens me, and then pop all the munitions with that EE in the graveyard. So, unfortunately, he does hit a Kozilek's Command, which will speed him up to his threats very quickly. And these 2 Memnites, dude, they're getting in there. These 2 Memnites, I don't know. They definitely put in work. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it was because the decks that I faced, but I didn't miss the 4th Welding Jar or the 4th Tormod's Crypt this tournament. And you know, I even face a Ragavan later, so these Memnites look good into that. But oh my god, Sire of 7 Deaths, or whatever this guy's called. He's a 7/7 with every keyword you can think of. He has Ward 7, which means that I basically can't get rid of him because my only removal right now is these munitions, and I can't target it 4 times to kill it and pay 28 life. That's just not in the cards. So this Sire of 7 Deaths is going to come in swinging this match. Now, you probably noticed I played an Urza Saga, and this is where the controversy comes in. I play an Urza Saga, and then I play a Mishra's Bauble. So this Urza Saga is going to troll me because you see there, we come back to my turn. He just attacked and then passed. We come back to my turn. I forgot to tick up Urza Saga. Maybe, I think it's happened. Yeah, I forgot to tick up Urza Saga. The judge came over and was like, yeah, I mean, you can miss that, which I don't know. Can you miss an Urza Saga? I don't know. We just went with what the judge said. So instead of being able to make a construct this turn and basically be able to block this Sire of 7 Deaths, which would help me a ton and kill it, you know, I now am basically racing this thing. You see there, I have 2 Mishra's Baubles. I get so excited by how many cards I'm drawing. I miss the Urza Saga again. Oh my god, I want to kick myself. So we've missed Urza Saga ticking up twice, I think. My playback's a little laggy, so maybe I've missed it once, but I know in total I missed it a total of 2 times this game. So I'm like, okay, well, screw it. If I can't make my big Saga token, I keep forgetting this trigger, which I'm like kicking myself right now because I've noticed at this point. I'm at least going to play a giant Kappa Cannoneer, which is like, you know, it's just as good. It's something to get in the way of this Sire 7 Death. So Sire has, let me see if I can remember everything. First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink, Trample, Ward 7, Reach. Did I say Vigilance? Like, he has so many keywords. He is just a big beat stick. And now he has an Eldrazi Line Breaker as well, which this thing is going to be pumping up the Sire, making it basically barely outpace my Kappa. So it's getting scary, and not to mention, you guys can't see the clock right now, but the clock is winding down. This round is coming to an end, so we need to handle this quickly. And luckily, I had a welding jar, so I was able to heal up that Kappa Cannoneer, keep it around to get even bigger. Here you see, oh my gosh, my left hand coming in clutch, saving the day by ticking up my Urza Saga. Now, I want to mention that it's if it looks sus that I missed the Urza Saga trigger, it would have helped me to catch it. So we both discussed that after the game, and yeah. But I was able to cast another Kappa Cannoneer as he's able to remove my largest one, and since he's Eldrazi, he can pay the 4. But this game's coming down to the wire. I'm at 4 health. He has a Line Breaker plus Sire. He's going to Line Breaker, I believe the Sire again, instead of the new creature. So it kind of frees up how I can block. I can make a construct, and get in the way of most things, taking 3 down to 1. If he would have pumped the other guy and swung, I definitely think he could have won. I guess I could have blocked a little differently and done some munitions things if he did that. But here, the Saga's going to go away. And notice that I have that Shadow Spear. That Shadow Spear snuck into play at some point. I think it was the first turn I forgot my Saga trigger. I was like, well, screw it. Let me just put this down. So I can now equip this construct with Shadow Spear, make it very large. Instead of equipping the skateboard just to give it one more pump, I don't really care. Because I'm going to gain enough life here to where I don't know what he could draw to save him. However, he goes to try to exile my land on his turn. So you know what? Let me just ping him down. So we're going to ping him. And all of a sudden, this game, I went from 1 life up to a ton. Also worth mentioning is the camera angle here. It got a little weird when the judge came over because I think the judge knocked the camera. But as you see there, in turns, I was able to steal that game with a giant construct with a Shadow Spear. Oh my god, that one came down to 1 life. It was insane. So this is going to be skipping to round 3. Round 2, I tried to set up my camera, could not get it to work in time, and just gave up on it. And luckily, that was the one that I lost. So at this point, you're watching it. I am 1-1. Just how round 2 went, I went against the Blood Chief combo. He comboed on me turn 2, game 1, and then game 2, he used his Hex Parasite to exile my only land, which was an Urza Saga. And it was such a non-game. The round was over in 10 minutes for me. So it's probably for the best that I did not record it. But hey, as we kind of jump into this one, this is round 3. I'm facing against a green-red deck that is going to be spicy. And as you saw there, he did reveal a Galta off the top. So spoiler alert, he is on green-red dinosaurs. It's spicy. And I've heard people were saying they were struggling against this deck because it's just big dumb creatures with ramp, you know? But luckily his ramp here is creatures. So Ignoble Hierarch, and then that Eldrazi spawn from the Rumble. I was able to use my weapons tokens, which are off screen. I have some munitions off screen, and ping those down with a Claw of Gix. And at this point, he has 3 lands out, an Eldrazi Scion, and I have weapons and munitions that are, once again, off screen, and a Kappa just swinging in every turn. So this one's going to be closed out very quickly. I was able to slow down his game plan by killing his mana dorks before he could get anything scary. And he goes for a Registar Alpha, which gives his dinosaurs haste, and then makes a 3/3. So before combat, I'm just going to kill the Registar so that the 3/3 is kind of stuck there. And now we've got him down at 8. This game has gone super quick, by the way. So yeah, and luckily we peel a Pinnacle Emissary. Just any artifact would have done. We just need to make 2 artifacts to make this an 8/8, and then we can swing across. I did not even notice that he was at 8, though. That's why it looks like I'm BMing by casting more artifacts. No, I honestly did not know. But we could just swing in for lethal. But like I said, people were talking about this deck, and this deck looked pretty cool. I believe he plays some dinosaurs that can basically just dump a lot of dinosaurs out. So one that can put all the ones in his hand into play. Then I think he plays the ones that get things from his deck or something. I don't really know fully. We weren't able to see it there. But game two, I side in some counter spells. Um, and side out some I just trim on some of the zero drops. I really expect like meltdowns to come in here, so that's why I like to trim some of the zero drops that I know don't have any play in the matchup. So things like Tormod's Crypt here, I know shouldn't see too much play. Um, but I'm able to stick a weapons manufacturing as he untaps and drops a Blood Moon, a beautiful Blood Moon, by the way. But luckily, I have the Island in hand, and I have the one of Springleaf Drum. I mean, I don't really think it would have mattered, but we have. I knew I was fine. I figured something like this would come up. In fact, I even cited in my own like Blood Moon but Island version creatures. Um, However, he does go for a Meltdown, which does take care of that Springleaf Drum, but that's okay. I still have blue mana from the island, still have red mana from the Blood Moon non-land or non-basic lands, and then we have a Mox Opal, which I'm able to kind of activate here by putting on more munitions, which by the way are once again off camera. Also worth noting is that the lights in this card shop are very bright, so that glare is something fierce. But we have a EE on 0 and a skateboard, and we're about to teach this turtle how to kickflip because I tap down his Blood Moon with a skateboard trigger and swing in for 6, and or I guess 7. Oh god. 6, 7. I swing in for 7 with a Kappa Cannoneer, and I'm staring down a 6/6 dinosaur, which I believe he said he doesn't play them yet, but he's looking to get the thing that like costs less for the biggest power of dinosaur he has, and then it just like basically recurs his dinosaurs or something. It seems like a cool deck. It's just I definitely had the hand to beat it. So a big Kappa just gets the job done. I was able to stifle his mana dorks, and we're on to round 4 already. Round 1 was a doozy and a half, but round 4, here we come. And this guy, I know he used to play Burned, like a weird version of it. I don't know. I don't want to make that change my decisions, but we keep an Emery hand, a pretty good one too. And I was able to mill a Kappa Cannoneer and a Shadow Spear off the top. So if he is on burn, which as you see here, he suspends a Rift Bolt. If he's on burn, this Kappa plus Shadow Spear combo is just gonna ravage game 1. So yeah, that's what we do. We just we just go for it, right? And now I wanna say something. He plays a weird version of burn. I think he plays a pet card as he sends that Rift Bolt to my face instead of sending it at Emery, which I definitely think was the right play here with Shadow Spear in the graveyard. And then he Lava Spikes me for 3. You're about to see the card that he plays that's I think is his pet card. It's a big, I believe 6-drop elemental, and it basically all it says it's a 6/6 with trample, and it costs 1 less to cast for each damage that I've taken that turn, like non-combat damage. And what it does is anytime that any non-combat damage goes to my face, it'll also redirect to my creatures as well. So once he gets this thing online, it's scary. But now that he's given me a turn of Kappa with being able to untap with Emery and get the Shadow Spear in play, it's gonna become a very difficult game for him to win, despite him kind of doing that. So it kind of becomes a question of like if he were playing normal burn, I think we would have had a, a more of a game here just because of him, not bolting my Emery and having to bolt my face to get his awkward creature online. You know what I mean? But even still, like I could see the draw to this deck. I mean, it seems sick, right? Like imagine you're facing against like a Yawgmoth player and you just bolt everything and them at the same time. You're just like taking down their life total and killing their stuff. It'd be pretty insane. But speaking of insane, verse burn having a giant Kappa with a Shadow Spear equipped, giving it lifelink. Oh my goodness. What can they do? What can they do? They can bolt my face and hit my token, is what they can do. But with 3 cards in hand, I don't even think there's 3 cards in his deck that could kill my Kappa. So he ends up scooping it up because the writing was on the wall, and we're in game 2. My opponent drops a Seal of Fire. This is interesting. In his version of Burn, it makes sense because it's kind of like another way to suspend a Rift Bolt. You could play this turn 1, and then turn 2, you could bolt, activate Seal of Fire, deal 5, and then cast your big elemental. But here we see Roiling Vortex. This card is doubly good against me. It's insane against me because it deals 1 per upkeep. Like it deals 1 on each of our upkeep to whatever player. and then he can pay a red and shut off life gain for the turn. So, like, my Shadow Spear no longer will do its thing. But most importantly, if I were to cast a 0 mana spell, it deals 5 to me. So all of a sudden, this hand of like Pinnacle Emissary with weapons manufacturing doesn't look so good in the face of this Roiling Vortex because I can't dump my hand into it. Then I just take 10 damage and we cry. But luckily, I do have an Urza Saga, and this Urza Saga is going to absolutely pop off. And here, I fetch up my Mox Opal. He doesn't crack the Seal of Fire to kill a construct while it's a 2/2, which is good for me. I mean, I feel like he's just setting up a play trying to get his elemental out. Um, which I guess you got to do what your deck needs you to do, right? But I definitely think his chances of winning go up if he just kills one of the constructs, because now I have another Saga out, and I'm able to play all these weapons. And here you're gonna see we play a 3-drop Pinnacle, and now I just have a bunch of weapons and a Pinnacle, and these constructs are massive. He's at 12. I make them into 6/6s, and boom, we take down Burn. We are on to round 3, 4, 5. This is round 5. So this is the final round of Swiss. After round 5, we cut to top 8. I'm currently 3-1. And man, my hand is gas. Okay, I'm able to play Pinnacle into 4/0 drops and just create a wide board. Unfortunately, as you see, he drops Flooded Strand. This tells me he's either on like Esper Blink or like Jeskai Control or something, or just some weird Momo deck or something. And Wrath exists in those decks. Luckily, though, the final card in my hand was the Kappa Cannoneer. So we're able to crack in for 4. He fetches down to 15. And I have a 5/5 Kappa. But yes, my worst fears come to light as he drops not Settle the Wreckage, Wrath of the Skies, or whatever that card's called. And destroys all my 0 drops. So now we're just left with a Kappa. Luckily, we've seen Kappa's enough. But it's not gonna last forever. Eventually he'll get to like Solitude. He'll get up to 4 mana and he can Solitude and pay the ward. But I do peel an Emery, so now I have 2 threats, right? If he were to drop like Supreme, if he were to drop like a Supreme Verdict, it would look pretty scary, and that would definitely shut me down here. But with Emery out, I think we're fine. We can basically just recycle these and hope it's enough. Get him down to 2, and then eventually, like if he were to Wrath here, I think the game swings. But I definitely think with decks pivoting more into Ophalia role, they definitely do play less Wraths. And luckily we've already seen one, so his odds of having a different Wrath are much lower. And as you see, his hand is kind of stacked. Subtlety, Consign, and Ephemerates, but he's at 2, and I have an unblockable creature, right? And I have Emery to guarantee a cast to make it unblockable. So on to game 2. We're up a game. Final round of Swiss. Can we make it into the top 8? We basically had to play it out. I think there were 5 X1s at the time, so we had to play it out just to reduce awkwardness. And here, I do a sleep check, okay? Are you asleep? Do you fetch in response to my turn 1 Pithing Needle? And he does. So I do name Flooded Strand, his other fetch that I've already seen, the other fetch that I know he's on those colors. And you will see that does come up as he surveils away a Scalding Tarn, and then Ragavans away my other Scalding Tarn. So Scalding Tarn's out of the question. But I know he has a Ragavan. That's a clock, and if he hits some good things off the top of my deck, it can absolutely get scary. Especially because I'm not really presenting much of a threat here. And as you see there, he does hit a Kappa, but luckily he cannot cast that. I mean, imagine if he was able to cast that Kappa against me using those treasure tokens or something. That would be absolutely terrifying. But here we untap with an Urza Saga, play a bunch of 0 drops, get a bunch of weapons manufacturing. I will say this game plan does get scary into Wrath, but as you see, he has 1 white mana and a fetch land that is Pithing Needled, and then he goes for a counter spell countering my Emery. goes for the Ragavan once again. I guess he does have those treasures, so he's not cut off of mana as much as I thought, but still, he's not drawing lands. Ragavan, I end up just pinging down with one of the munitions tokens, and now we're kind of fine. Like, I have a board state, I have a Saga that can make some tokens. I'm fading a Wrath of the Skies, which is good. But he's definitely going to be drawing a lot of cards with this Quantum Riddler. And here comes Urza Saga activation number 1. That's one big hefty dude. Because we have some munitions tokens out. Also, it's worth noting, I've been holding up a counterspell this whole game, Metallic Rebuke. It counters unless he pays 3. So now that he's kind of paid some tokens, he can't activate that fetch due to Pithing Needle. I'm kind of sitting pretty. As long as I keep a blue open and some artifacts to tap to pay for that, I can... I'm not really scared of much at this point in the game. And these construct tokens should start clocking him as he's at 13 now. And whenever your opponent starts tapping artifacts, you just cry. Because here comes Kappa Cannoneer, which he does go to counter it. Now look, I could get into a counter war here, but if I go for the counterspell here and then he just untaps and rats, I lose. So I just say, hey, screw it. I'll let you counter my Kappa. Luckily, his counterspell was the one that turns it into a 2/2 bird. So here comes the Ancient Stirrings that they handed us before this round. This is my 2/2 bird. And it just adds to the clock. I'm like, sure, you can counter the Kappa. I still have a giant construct in its wake, right? As he kind of reveals what his deck's all about. It's Jeskai Blink, but without Flage, it loses a lot. So he has to play weird cards. I actually don't know what this card's called. I think it's from the new Strixhaven set, but it says when it enters, he draws 3, which is a lot. And then at the beginning of his next upkeep, he has to discard 3 at random. I believe there's some cool interactions with Felia or like blinking this. Maybe you could like, you'll draw 6. Then I don't know if you have to discard 6. I don't know how it works, but he's playing it and it looks pretty sweet. It lets him see a lot of new cards. So I'm kind of like, I have him pegged on Solitude now. With that many cards in hand, surely there's a Solitude camping out there. But I still go for combat, as we do actually see the Solitude, as he takes back the blocker so he can say what he's solituding first. And there he pitches the Ephemerate. He doesn't go to Ephemerate the Solitude. He pitches the Ephemerate. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'll let that Solitude go through. I still have a 2/2, and I have these munitions. He goes down to 3 from combat, from 5 to 3, thanks to the 2/2 bird that he gifted me. And instead of just popping my munitions now, I know he's about to have to discard 3 cards, so it might look toxic to like let him untap and stuff. But now that he's down to 1 card in hand, he can't Solitude. So if I went for the munitions kill while he had 4 cards in hand, there's a chance he could Solitude, exile his own thing, gain some life. But it makes sense, right? Like waiting until his upkeep when he has to get down to 1 card, 4 lands, or 4 mana with the treasure. Then not cutting off his avenue of being able to Solitude himself out. So we win. We're in top 8. We're back in top 8. Now, for those of you that watched our last video, if you haven't, definitely check it out. We did an RCQ with Soultrader Combo. That was so fun. Such a good deck. However, now we're playing the meta deck, Affinity, and we've made it to top 8. And honestly, we've made it pretty unscathed, other than round 1 and obviously round 2 where we got absolutely rinsed. It's been pretty smooth sailing. Like the deck has been playing itself. As long as I get all the triggers, I think we're good. As we come to this game, I do go for a Mishra's Bauble, which will just, he smartly remembers to cast the Orcish Bowmasters before that trigger pings me down. So now he has kind of a good clock on me. But this is obviously Esper Blink. I know this player too, so I kind of knew what he was on a little bit, and then this just confirms it. So he's on Esper Blink. This could get a little hairy. However, Kappa Cannoneer is going to have to do some heavy lifting. But spoiler alert from the last video, we did make it to top 4 in the last video. So I want to see if we can beat top 4 in this video, or if we can if playing the meta deck doesn't get us any further in this RCQ. So that's kind of like the whole draw here. So we're close. We're close. We're in the top 8 currently. Worth noting, I actually did split the prizes on this top 8. So we all split. So I think I turned $30 into $90 store credit, which is, hey, I still take that. Now we're just playing out for the promo and for the invite. As you see, a Kappa Cannoneer comes down. He does have that Overlord down, which can be scary later on, or if he can blink it. But so far, we aren't seeing much blinks happening. But what we are seeing is our first Solitude of the match. He pitches it to Fairy, exiles my Kappa, and comes in for 3. So this clock is happening. These Bowmaster guys, if I don't deploy something soon, it could get out of hand. But I do have a lot of cards in hand. And as you see, I'm tapping more artifacts. Here comes Kappa number 2, baby! The turtle, the turtle in the full shell is what this guy's called. And then we followed up with an Emery, if you know, just to rub salt in the wound. And we mill over a welding jar. So this this Kappa Cannoneer is about to become basically immune to combat damage if Emery's allowed to live, which is very good. I will say, a lack of ephemerates here is good for us. You know, if he were able to ephemerate that Quantum Riddler, it would look a lot worse. However, he does make a very good play. After the Quantum Riddler goes away at his instep, he fatal pushes my Emery, which, you know, pretty good. However, I have a Mox Opal in hand, so I can make this guy unblockable. He is at 12, so I can swing in for a 7/6 Kappa Cannoneer, and all of a sudden, if I peel an artifact off the top, that's game. So I'm going for that play. But this guy, his name's Will. He's such a good player. He's, if anyone is going to make you think you've won, but actually beat you in the long run, it's this guy. So he plays Emperor of Bones, exiles his Solitude from his own graveyard at his combat. And that's going to come up later. I'm sitting here like, oh, he doesn't have enough mana. Now he has 5 mana, so he still can't activate it and pay for my ward. But what he can do is activate it and exile his own thing. And as you see here, like, I'm like, okay, I have you down to 5. I haven't been pulling artifacts off the top of the deck, but I did draw an Urza Saga. So that's basically an activation of, or a trigger of Kappa Cannoneer's unblockable next turn. So if I can untap without him gaining life, he's dead. However, like I've mentioned, Solitude is under that Emperor of Bones. And he now has an active 5/5 Overlord. So I activate the Saga. I'm sitting here like, forgot about Solitude. But he goes for the Adapt. Solitude, exile his own Emperor of Bones, and goes up to, what, 7 down to... maybe I had the life totals wrong, but yeah, he lives, right? He's alive at 1. So this is absolutely terrifying. And then he peels another Fatal Push off the top, and there goes my Construct. So now I have a tapped down Kappa. Luckily, I'm at 14, but he's going to start generating a lot of card advantage with this Overlord. So I am now on a clock. We are both on a clock. He has a blocker. I need some kind of artifact off the top in order to get unblockable. He does take, I believe, a Witch Enchanter. Maybe even Flicker Wisp. No, it is Witch Enchanter, which he is able to kill my, I believe, Urza Saga. Yeah, because as it stood, Urza Saga was lethal. I would just untap, activate it, make Kappa unblockable, and then win. But now we have a game, dude. We have a game. I need to peel an artifact. I don't. I flip it just to make the suspense there, and then all I do is just all I accomplished was revealing my my bounce spell. So what I do is, you know, when he announces going to combat, I'm going to bounce Flage. That way he can't bounce or flicker the Witch Enchanter. Or I guess he could technically flicker my Kappa. That wouldn't do anything though. But now it's close. Okay, it is extremely close. I'm at 11. He has some big creatures on the field. He now has a Flicker Wisp too, so he has a flyer. I still just keep ripping cards that aren't ending this game, which is crazy to me. But he goes to destroy with Witch Enchanter, destroy the skateboard. but I welding jar it. And then I ended up peeling another Kappa. So my current Kappa was unblockable and that was game. So very close game. What looked like it was over early actually became a grindy match. Like I said, this player is so good. So if he's watching this, huge shout out to you, dude. You are insane. Um, as we open up game 2 with an Emery on turn 1 and mill 2 Kappa Cannoneers. As you see, spot removal is kind of all his deck is, and that being said, Kappa will carry a lot of weight in this round. But as you're going to see right here, I don't have too many 0 drops in hand to get that Kappa Cannoneer out this turn. So what I do is I actually attack with my Emery. And you'll see why. I figured he had a failure. So I just want to get that thing out now. I want to counter it with that Metallic Rebuke. So we get failure out of the way. I know how scary failure can get if you just leave it untouched, right? So I want to get that out of the way with a counter spell by baiting the failure out. And here we actually get Bogart trawlered. Oh man, yeah, failure with all of these not KFC, KM, whatever the dual side land creatures are, like Bogart Trawler, they're so good. So I should have known that a Bogart Trawler was going to hit my yard. So there go 2 Kappa Cannoneers. And all of a sudden, we're kind of in a weird spot. But I have Emery, I have a Tormod's Crypt, so I'm able to just hit his yard every turn. And I had 6 permanents that I could tap to play a Kappa that I ripped off the top. So here's Kappa number 3. Kind of lucky on my part, but also kind of unlucky that we milled the other 2 and our graveyard got hit. So it kind of balances out. But we're back into a similar state as game 1. Now, very notable here, one of my 0-drop artifacts is Claw of Gix, meaning that if he goes to Solitude my Kappa and is able to pay for it, I can actually sack it to Claw, and then that way I can just recast it with Emery. So that will end up coming up. But as you see here, I can basically get a perma activation of Kappa Cannoneer and keep his graveyard small with this Tormod's Emery combo. And the reason why that's important, it might not look at him like important. It's not a graveyard deck that I'm facing, but we're limiting the options that Overlord of the Bale work or whatever it's called, Bale Merc. We're limiting the options of permanents in the yard for him to get back with that. So it will come up. And as you see here, he does play a Solitude on my Kappa, but you see it goes to the graveyard because, like I said earlier, we can Claw of Gix that away, and then all of a sudden it's in the graveyard for future use with Emery. And here it comes. You know, this thing will never die. If you don't get rid of Emery, this turtle will just keep on coming back. Okay, sorry, I had to drink some water there. Been yapping away for like 30 minutes now. This game, it might not look close. It might look like, oh, it's over. He has a Kappa, but there's still so much play in his deck. Like, this is not over. I do play 2 Pinnacles. I had that one warped from way earlier in the game. And I do top deck 1, but now I'm hellbent. So if he draws some kind of board wipe, we're kind of screwed. However, luckily, all he really has is the Solitude. The only downside is I tapped out to play the second freaking Pinnacle. Why? I don't know. But I tapped out, so now that's 3 Kappas in my exile. The upside, though, is that our opponent is at 4. And if he doesn't draw anything like a Wrath of the Skies right now, then... Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, there's Wrath of the Skies. So now all my 0 drops... Actually, I think he said for 3? We'll find out here soon. No, he said for 2. That's all he had for mana. I guess for 0, maybe. But basically, we are left with an Emery and a Pinnacle Emissary, and 3 of our Kappas are in the yard. However, like I said, he's at 4, so we do have a way to win. Let's play that next Pinnacle, get a trigger. So now we have 1/1 spawning every turn, but now we have a Mox Opal in hand, so that's 3 1/1s on the board. And Emery, come on, Emery. What do we got? We have a Claw, we have an EE, and a Mox Opal. And I believe a Tormod's Crypt. Okay, so we get the Claw back, just in case he goes to remove, like, Pinnacles, we can sack him to Claw and then recast him next turn. That's kind of of all the things in my yard, that's kind of the best thing. I guess technically I could chain some Mox Opals together or get Sunburst down on, like, 3. But here he plays a Clarion Conqueror. This shuts down my activated abilities of creatures, which is Emery, and artifacts. So now this Mox Opal and the Claw of Gix are dead. Basically, that thing's a 2/3 or 3/2 flyer or something. So it also will start to wall my creatures. But you know what? The wall's not big enough. We're going to crack in 5 flyers and 3 non-flyers. He has a Fatal Push, but he has no way to turn it on. So there, I guess he can turn it on with Polluted Delta, but that will take him down too low. So there, we're out of the top 8. We're in the top 4. Guys, we are sweeping. Other than that loss that you guys didn't even get to see, trust me, I didn't even get to see it. I played the game. We're on to top 4. This is where we lost last tournament. So can we outperform ourselves on a better deck? Does this prove anything? Playing a better deck, has it made these matches more consistent? I would say so. I would definitely say that the matches last tournament were much closer. They definitely came down to like one pivotal removal spell on my part. These have felt more dominant. As you see, we have a hand that dumps a bunch of Pinnacle tokens out. We have 4 tokens out. That is going to be a 5-turn clock. And they reveal Forest, Delighted Halfling. That tells me like maybe Yawgmoth. And then Swamp off the top. So I'm like, okay, they're probably on Yawgmoth. And by the way, I saw their top card with a Mishra's Bauble. However, like I said, we have them on an absolute clock. It doesn't look that bad. Like, it really doesn't. But swinging in for 4 every turn and then 5, putting Yawgmoth on a clock is scary because they need their life total to activate Yawgmoth, right? So it definitely will add up over time. There, I cracked the Mishra's Bauble. One funny thing is you'll see 3 Mishra's Bauble activations this turn. All 3 of them draw... No, wait. The first 2 draw the second and third Mishra's Bauble. So every Mishra's Bauble trigger drew a Mishra's Bauble this turn. But as you see, to match my clock, they actually do deploy some threats. They put down a Badgermole Cub and then do the Rumble, and see they get an Ouroboros off the top. So now they actually have a scary board. They have a bunch of Mana Dorks and an Ouroboros. I can't even say the word. Ouroboros in the yard, or in their hand. So this is actually a lot scarier than it looks. Here I activate Mishra's Bauble, see Yawgmoth off the top. So I'm like, okay, here comes Yawgmoth, about to swing across maybe, or like what's the play? But here they just deploy even more Mana Dorks. This tells me that they have a Chord of Calling in hand. But you know what's better than a Chord of Calling in hand? A shit ton of little 1/1s on the board, okay? And that's kind of what we're going with. We have a bunch of 1/1s. We have a Construct token now, and I'm able to get like Shadow Spear. Actually, I have Shadow Spear in hand, but I can get like Skateboard or Pithing Needle from the deck. And since I saw Yawgmoth, I'm going to go ahead and shut off a lot of their avenues to get out of this kind of chokehold that I have them in. I'm going to Pithing Needle Yawgmoth. And then here, I actually equip Shadow Spear to Construct, which I stand by, okay? You'll see it ends up making the game last 1 turn longer instead of putting it on the Construct. However, notably, like, I know they have Chord because they have a bunch of dorks open and it's Yawgmoth. So if they were to like fetch something like an Outland Liberator and just blow up the Construct, you know, like that would be kind of sucky. So instead, or maybe block, I don't know. Instead, we put it on the Pinnacle to make it a 4/4 with lifelink, which still blocks them for next turn. It's less risky but less upside. And as you see here, we actually force them to Chord for Sephiroth, and that is going to it's going to sack their Swamp, and then I'm going to crack the Tormod's Crypt in response to the Earthbend trigger. And then here, using that Eldrazi spawn plus blocks, they actually are able to flip Sephiroth. So now with a backside Sephiroth, but only 1 forest out, the game could get interesting. I just don't know what sequence of cards they would have to draw in order to really be able to maximize the Sephiroth. You know, with only literally a forest left, it's kind of brutal. So I'm glad I cracked that Tormod's Crypt to kind of limit their options. And as you see here, with them at 5 and me with a World of Flyers, we are good to go. Here, this is the opening hand. I ended up, I forgot to show my sideboard this tournament. Usually I like to kind of show what I board in and out, but I forgot. But you see there, I'm not going to spoil it. I have one of my sideboard cards, and I actually have 2 of my sideboard cards in hand, as they open up with a fetch land into a Green Suns for a Dryad Arbor. This is This is pretty important because it does ramp them out very quickly, but you'll see it does open them up to board wipes. Okay, spoiler alert, board wipes. As you see, I was able to play a Mox Opal and a Relic of Progenitus as they dump double Young Wolf. Young Wolf is 2/2 with Undying. Um, so bolting myself once again, both of my Sink into Stupors in hand. I bolt myself down to 14. Use the Mox Opal and a blue land to play Whip Flare. Whip Flare is like Pyroclasm. It deals 2 damage to each creature, except it only hits non-artifact creatures. So it board wipes them, and then with the Undying triggers in the graveyard off on the stack, I'm going to use my other mana to pop Relic of Progenitus. This was only really made possible with Mox Opal, to be honest, that play. Otherwise, they could have untapped and played Yawgmoth and literally won on the spot, basically. So that was a very, very big turn. And with them mulling down to 6 and me being able to shut down their entire hand with Whip Flare Relic of Progenitus, this one is going to close out quickly, hopefully, unless something goes terribly wrong. This one's looking very good. And, you know, what better way to clock your opponent than to drop a giant dum-dum turtle? So now we have a Kappa that's going to start cracking in every turn. We have Thought Cast, so we're going to see even more cards just to kind of like replenish the hand, so that we can outvalue as well as threaten with a clock. And speaking of value, we have Emery, just the value goddess herself. She doesn't really mill anything notable, but just milling an artifact in general is going to guarantee that I can keep making this Kappa unblockable. As I cast two spells, this Outland Liberator is going to keep on flipping. It's basically practicing for when it gets the skateboard equipped to it. But there you see, I crack a Mishra's Bottle. I have to take a double look. That's a walking ballista. I had never seen that art before, but apparently it exists. But you know, my opponent is on a 2-turn clock. I can't present enough power from this Kappa to close it out this turn, but I can teach it how to kickflip, which is pretty sick. I'm going to tap down, not the creature, because I don't really care about it. It can't block. I'm going to tap down the Spymaster's Vault. Here, I'm kind of getting aggressive deploying my threats because I know Yawgmoth needs life. They need life to combo off. So if I can just deploy as much as I can and just put them down to 1, I think that just increased my chances, especially because, like I said, they have like no cards to work with because the Mold of 6 plus the big Whip Flare was it's just brutal. But they play the Walking Ballista on 0. That way they can activate their Spymaster's Vault, which Spymasters put in work in the last tournament. Looking for some way to get rid of this Kappa Cannoneer, but cannot find it. Guys, we are on to the finals. The finals. So we've already outperformed ourselves from last tournament. So I guess maybe this proves play the meta deck. But you'll notice we are actually against our round 1 opponent. And this guy's chilling all, but he was asking so many times for us just to split, and he was begging to take the promo, and then he was begging to take the Baltimore invite, and I was like, no, let's just play it out. Whoever wins wins. But I do have an edge because I was actually coming into the top 8. It's worth noting I was rank 1 on the seeding, so I actually get to go first all of the top 8 basically. So I have a huge edge as Affinity, and here you see it in play, because I was able to go first before the Chalice and deploy my 0 drops, and that allows me to get a turn 2. I guess maybe a turn. No, yeah, a turn 2 Kappa Cannoneer, and we've seen it all tournament. Turn 2 Kappa Cannoneer is so hard for decks to deal with. It's kind of made possible thanks to Pinnacle Emissary though. That card just lets you spit out a bunch of artifacts turn 1, which is kind of what lets you get the Kappas. People blame Mox Opal. Look, I'm not doubting Mox Opal's the crazy card here, but Pinnacle is definitely what actually makes it function. But here we're in the finals. We saw just how close round 1 got versus this opponent. So I'm hoping that we can escape this with a win. This would be my first ever RCQ win, which would just mean so much to me. So come on, let's get it. But you see here we have a giant Kappa versus his Line Breaker. And the Line Breaker, or he does peel the Eldrazi that's able to exile an artifact or enchantment, which does take out the Pinnacle. So it's going to stop what I can put onto the board in the future. But what's going to stop what I have on the board now? I'll tell you what's not going to stop it is the top deck Pinnacle to make my Kappa unblockable again. So we're going to game 2. I'm up a game. We're bringing in the Consigns and the Galvanic Blast just to kind of shoot his creatures down, and to counter his bigger Eldrazi and stuff, or you know, the triggered abilities and stuff. Um, but we're actually met with a turn 1, not Chalice, not Vexing Bauble, but Damping Sphere. Damping Sphere says it makes his lands only tap for 1 mana, which slows him down a lot. I'm happy with that. But it does slow me down a lot because it says like the second spell that a player casts in a turn will cost 1 more. And then the third spell they cast in the turn will cost 2 more, and so on and so forth. So it means that I can't deploy as many 0 drops. However, you're going to see, maybe it's not this game, maybe it's next game, you're going to see that I can actually use that to my advantage. But like I said, it does slow me down as I do have a bunch of 0 drops chilling in my hand, which will cost a lot of mana. But I also have that Pinnacle Emissary in hand. So I have to really pick and choose when I want to deploy these threats. I'm playing it very slow, though. I probably, in hindsight, I probably should have played the Pinnacle and then just played like a one mana 0 drop, right? But it ends up working out because he does Thought Not away the Kappa, and if I would have done that, we would have been in a really bad spot. So here on turn, now that I have 4 mana, I can pay 1 to warp the Pinnacle, pay 1 to play a 0 mana Midnight, and then pay 2 to play the second Midnight. Man, a 2 mana Midnight, that's got to be the worst creature they've ever printed, right? But here they play the creature that exiles an enchantment or artifact again. Get rid of my Urza Saga, which was a big part of my board. I mean, that was replacing that Kappa basically. And then they put down a Vexing Bauble. Luckily, I do peel a weapons manufacturing, but you'll look, he has a lot of power on his board. He has 6 power to my 2 Midnights, right? I have 2 flyers, but those can't block his big dudes. And I can't, my 0 drops will not enter the field. So I'm actually in a very, very bad spot. And then to put the nail in the coffin, he drops another line breaker, increasing the clock tremendously. That's giving something +4 +0 or +4 +4 every turn. Something crazy. And this one should close out soon. I'm going to be chump blocking that Thought Knot Seer to take 4 less, but still getting put down to 6. I mean, this is brutal. I do peel a Consign off the top, which I do end up deploying here, but maybe I shouldn't have because it doesn't win me the game. But to be fair, he knows I'm on Consign. Let's be real. This is an Eldrazi player. He knows Consign's coming. But, if I were to rip like I guess Claw wouldn't even get me out of this. I think my out here is if I draw some kind of 0 drop, can play it, and then I can play EE for 1, but it would need to be a colorless mana. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I have many outs here. We're getting cracked for so much damage. I think I get put down to 1 here because I chump blocked the Thought Knot again. I think I top deck a land, and that's not going to do it. So we're on to game 3 in the finals. Oh god, and you're about to see we're both like, good luck, and he offers me a handshake here. It wasn't the hey do you concede type of handshake. It was actually the power of friendship handshake. What is that? It was a kind moment. He was like, whoever wins, like, let's have fun, It was a good moment. But let's see this hand. This opener hand, it's a lot of good spells. We got a Consign in there, an Urza Saga, but that's the only mana. And with the only payoff being Urza Saga and Emery, I can't do that. That is no colored mana. Bad hand. And then you see the opponent also mulliganing down to 6. He had a 0 lander, actually. So, I don't know, 0 lander with a Chalice. I feel like you would keep that with the Devoured of Destinies to kind of like set up your hand. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But here this hand looks much better. We have a Mox Opal. We have an Urza Saga still, and we have a Consign. So it's basically all the good from last hand. It's just now I can actually cast the Consign. And here we're off like a herd of turtles. Both of us mold down to 6, but I have a Consign to kind of like take out one of his cards in hand, which, hey, show me the card and I'll counter it. Yeah, this countering the line breaker here is big because it shuts down his potential clock by a lot. That card amps up how fast I die very quickly. And you see here, we're in the finals, baby. I am not missing any Urza Saga triggers in the finals. In fact, we actually hit a Pithing Needle. I don't really know if there's anything big to name here, but I just named the land. That way he can't get his Null Breaker back in the future and have that like come into play. So I don't know. I don't think that was the right play, but I also don't know his entire list. But he does see a Chalice, puts down Chalice on 0, and is able to draw 2 cards. However, I'm going to make a construct and then counter not the Null Drifter, but I'm actually going to counter the draw 2. Like I said, we both mulled down to 6. So not only is this like an aggro war, but it's also a war of resources. And to cut him off of cards, I feel like that's very important here. Instead of countering the Kozilek's command or the actual Null Drifter himself, I think it's right, since I have 2 constructs about to be cracking across or swinging across, I think it was correct to counter the draw too. Because limiting what he can do to stop these constructs, I think, is very important. But speaking of the constructs, they're coming across. They're coming across with a vengeance, putting him down to 9. I was able to tap down his Null Drifter, but that plays out of the way. I can't tap down his Null Drifter again. Let's see. What did I just draw? I drew an EE. I can put that on 1. I cannot put that on 0, or it would just be countered. And then I can tap all these artifacts. You know, like I said earlier, you know it's bad when they start tapping their artifacts. So I force him to block the skateboarded construct. But I think that's 7 damage. Yeah, that's 7 damage coming across. The constructs go ham. What does he need here? I don't even think all his dust doesn't get rid of my colored creatures or colorless creatures. So there we have it. I won my first ever RCQ. Yes, I was the villain. I played the top deck, Affinity, but I will toot my own horn here. Other than those Urza sagas, I was very proud of how I played. I did not miss a single trigger other than those 2 Urza sagas. And I just played very well. I took smart mulligans. I sideboarded very well. And it felt very good. I will say we did play some non-meta decks through, along the way, but I also took down my fair share of meta decks, and I had to fight for that round 1 win and fight for some of those wins. Like, this was a grindy Affinity tournament, but guys, we did it. We won our first RCQ. Does this prove that you should definitely take meta decks to big tournaments? You know what? I'm just gonna say this has changed my outlook on it. I used to take like green white value town and like fun decks like that. No, I mean, I am broke. I am broke, and people know that about me. That's why they thought that I was on Prowess round 1 instead of Affinity. They didn't know I owned Mox Opals. I am broke. So if you were going to pay $30 for a tournament, damn right you should take your best deck, right? So maybe I should change my philosophy, my mindset a little bit with this video. But hey, did you guys enjoy this video? Hopefully you did. If you did, make sure and like the video on your way out. I spent so much time editing this. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you're subscribed before you leave. This is a brand new channel, and it would mean the world to me if we can reach 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for the support, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care, guys.